And what was your branch of service?
I served in the Army.
And what was your highest rank achieved?
E5.
And what general locations did you serve?
I served at Fort Jackson. I was issued weapons at a basic training camp at Fort Jackson. Oh dear.
All right. Were you drafted or did you enlist? What years were these?
I enlisted in 1980 after high school. I wanted to go to college and I went for the summer, but I wasn't college material, and my dad was a World War II veteran, so I followed his footsteps and wanted to join the Army because I wanted to do something with my life, and I chose to serve the country.
Okay. Where were you living at the time?
I was living in Suffield, Connecticut.
Okay. Do you recall the date in which you enlisted?
I do. I enlisted in September of 1980, the year of my graduation of high school.
Okay, so tell me about your first days in the service. How did it feel?
I didn't know what to expect, but when I went to basic training, I actually really liked it. I liked the ideas and what we were taught, how to defend our country, and the motivation, and I liked the group participation in running and exercising and the field training and things of that sort. So I really enjoyed it. Actually, I went in as a reserve, an Army reserve. And when I got home, I liked basic training and the idea of what they taught us in AIT of how it meant, what it means to serve your country and to fight for what you believe. I signed up to be an active Army.
Were there any instructors that you remember? It sounds like you had a good resonating time in boot camp. Was there anyone that stuck out as an influence?
Well, actually, I ended up being the first squad leader of the first platoon, and I never missed a target. Do all the training. All the instructors were just they were very good because they made us strive to do our best, to want to hit every target, to answer every call, and to meet every requirement. But then something bad happened to me the day before qualifications, and I missed everything. I couldn't hit a target. It was terrible. It was terrible. But I loved all the instructors. Oh dear.
So after boot camp, where did you go? Where was your first assignment?
I went to Fort Gordon. I went to Fort Gordon for AIT after boot camp for 05 Bravo and 05 Charlie, which is Morse code and radio teletype. And I was the distinguished honor graduate. And after that, since I was an Army Reserve, I went home. But when they asked me where did I want to go, I asked if I could go back to Fort Jackson because I loved the spirit of that post of training.
Did you get to go back to Fort Jackson?
I ended up going back to Fort Jackson, yes.
And you did the same type of stuff with the Morse code and...
Well, actually, I didn't. I issued weapons to basic trainees for quite a while.
So what were your first impressions, for example, when you got to your first training command?
I was highly motivated. I was just knowing that just what my dad did. And he was always such a proud guy, proud American. I felt I was doing something important. And I felt like what I was being taught was true until I saw another side.
So did you only go to Fort Jackson?
Yes.
Did you ever Did you ever deploy at all?
I didn't deploy, no.
So could you describe a typical day in the service for you?
For me, it was like being in basic training every day, which I enjoyed. Get up in the morning before the trainees and open the arms room and issue weapons and run to the ranges, and to see these people come in and march with them and run with them and try to motivate them. You only have so much time to teach them how to survive during the war. And then after the ranges, then they come home, and after long days, they'd turn their weapons in, and I would inventory with the battalion sergeant major with the serial numbers every night. Then I'd go, I stayed in, during that time, permanent party and basic trainees were staying in the same complex. So I didn't have to go far to go home and go to bed and wait for the next morning. But that was basically my day.
Were you awarded any medals or citations? You said you got honor grad, right?
I did get honor grad, and as I was at Fort Jackson, as I was the unit armor, I excelled so well that I was an acting Sergeant E5 because I was promoted so quickly because of my job performance that I reached the limit. So I couldn't become the E5. You had to be an E4 for a certain period of time, but because of my performance, they gave me an acting E5 position to make me a sergeant.
Did you sustain any injuries while you were in the service?
Actually, yes, I did. It wasn't, I wish I could say it was from a fierce battle that we won. But it wasn't. There were two types of injuries that I sustained from the military that last a lifetime.
Do you want to talk about those injuries, or?
Sure. One of the injuries, the physical injury, was I went to Moncrief Army Hospital, Fort Jackson, and a private pretended he was a dentist, gave me 2 shots of Novocaine, and took out my wisdom teeth. And I almost died. I went to the emergency room 3 times within 2 days to say something's wrong before they would see me. Fast forward 3 decades later, I have a lot of medical issues due to that, from sleep apnea to just TMJ surgeries. I've had 2 so far, to severe nerve damage, and the list goes on, but I'm okay because now it's acknowledged. The other was MST, military sexual trauma, and I'll only bring up 2. One was the day before basic training, the day before qualifications. We were competing hard throughout the entire time between squads and platoons, but the day before we got a pass, off-post pass, and I was violently raped by 2, and I only say drill sergeants because I saw the silhouettes of the hat. And the next day was qualifications, and I couldn't hit a target. I was expert. I didn't miss any. I was an expert shot. My records will prove it. But the day on qualifications, I couldn't hit anything. I became a marksman, and it was bad. But I thought it was an isolated incident. So when I went home, I went home, and I still wanted to be a soldier. I thought that was just something that happened, and I was ashamed and embarrassed when I didn't get any good shots or couldn't think of who was the enemy. But that was very traumatic. And I was raped 7 times, but the second the only other one that I could tell that was noticed was when I was asked to sing at an officer's dinner, and I had 2 other people with me, and the night before the event I was raped, and I couldn't sing, and I was never asked to sing again. I was never asked to sing again. And that was a lifetime of, after the service, that was, it led to a lot of bad things because it wasn't acknowledged. It wasn't, I went AWOL at one point after the rape. I went to my sister's in Detroit. I did my inventory of the arms room. I locked it. I did it with the Sergeant Major, and I got on a plane. I went to my sister's in Detroit. We contacted another military post, and they sent me back. It was late at night. I think it was after midnight I got back, and Sergeant Major Walensky gave me an Article 15 and took my rank. And put me right back where I left. So I left the service being a private E2. And I was sending my dad. He was sick. He had kidney disease, and he never asked the VA for anything. And I would imagine segregated military, World War II, if you can't get air support, what are you going to ask for after that? I would send him money, and that was stopped. And it hurt. And it hurt me up until recently, three plus decades. But I'm glad I'm a soldier. I'm glad I'm a veteran. I cursed it for a long time. Until Spirit reminded me King David was a veteran, so we're in good company. And I live next door to the VA hospital. And to see the children of veterans, it's good. It's good, and now the military has acknowledged that it's more likely than it is not that my behavior was due to the multiple rapes. And I swear, for 3+ decades, I live with the choices I made being passive aggressive, domestic violence, drug abuse, homelessness, rage, hurt, but hope, strength, courage, determination, because something wasn't right. I see these people coming home, and I pray for them. I pray for them that it doesn't take 3+ decades, but I wouldn't change a day, because I'll tell you, I'm not even sure where I'm at in this conversation, but I love serving my country. I love being a soldier. I really did. And now that the Army sent me a letter acknowledging that what I said, I wasn't lying, that what I said happened. And it's sad that I thought it was an isolated incident. I see women coming home now, coming to the VA. I see them now in the trash cans at Walmart, 2 of them, homeless already. And I know that after going through 3+ decades of all that I just said in negative, but after receiving that letter and finding this peace, and this is how I felt before all that tragedy, I wouldn't change a day. I'm glad I went into service. I'm not going to put the VA down. It's a great institution. But instead of building more psychiatric ER units like there in West Haven, Connecticut, it would be great. It would be, veterans would be able to enjoy the freedoms they fought to defend. If you could, we could have a unbasic training part of before we get out of the service. Basic training changes the wise mind to be passive aggressive, and that works to win a war. But when we get out, it doesn't blend in with society. If we could do a week, some type of program before service members got out the service, we wouldn't have all this PTSD issues. It's just an issue of changing a wise mind. And I'm saying that not because I'm a doctor, it's because of what I live and what I see at the VA. It's a passive aggressive issue, and over decades it becomes your life, and our children suffer, our spouses, and especially us. But I'll tell you, I am so thankful that the Department of the Army, CID, took the time and thoroughly investigated. I didn't know I would feel this way. I didn't know I would feel free. I didn't know I would feel like that person I did before the first rape. I was looking in the mirror saying, who is this person? And it dawned on me, this is how I used to feel. Now I'm motivated, I'm ready to go, I could sleep. The nightmares are still here. There are a couple other issues with post-traumatic stress, but that post-traumatic stress came over decades of screaming, something's wrong, being a passive-aggressive monster is what I was. And I went to the VA in Newington and West Haven. Everything's recorded. I used to curse that computer, thinking, what did they write in there about me? But it's okay, because now it all makes sense. It makes sense. This place where I live is, it's the first of 2 test sites for homeless veterans. And I was the biggest critic. I was saying, what are they thinking moving all those PTSD crazy veterans in the same place? But God knows it works. Most of us have been here, and now it's so successful they're moving combat veterans with children. So we have children here now, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. In all of the things I've been through, it's all written in the VA records. It's all accessible to anyone that I say, you're more than welcome to look. All of this, I've learned that the forgotten heroes are the children of veterans. I mean, I'm saying this to say there's a need to help these children, or at least give them an attaboy, a positive distraction, how you doing, you want to go to the park. If you have a kid veteran in your neighborhood, just say hi, see how they're doing. We see them when their parents go to war and their parents come home. There's a lot of days where they're by themselves. And what I didn't fight in a war. I was in peacetime, but I can't pick when there's peacetime and when there's not. But I know my children suffered, and I know that being a child of a veteran wasn't easy either. But as we go forward, as there's more exposure to us veterans, remember our children. Because for me, that is guiding me for the rest of my life. Because I think about me and my story of where I started as a child of a veteran. And all I could do is go on from here.
So, do you want to talk about how you've been trying to help the children in the neighborhood?
Well, what I did, I just started to ask people in the community voluntary services, Stu Leonard's, if they could help get some field trips for the children. If this community here at Victory Gardens, if we could use one of the vacant buildings that used to be a PERP, a PTSD program, for the children to go for in the morning to stop by and have a breakfast or a cup of oatmeal and a good morning to their fellow students. And then a study hall after school, a place where they could practice their instruments, because Lord knows loud noises and veterans, especially the ones coming home, don't get along at all. We're surrounded by Newington High School and baseball diamonds. We don't even have a playground here. It would have to be a handicapped accessible playground. So I did the steps, and I have the status for a nonprofit for the children of Victory Gardens, and hopefully maybe as we expand, but for the children of Victory Gardens, to provide them the simple basic breakfast, after school lunch, not lunch, homework, study hall, instrument place, a playground, field trips. New England is a beautiful place. It's hard for veterans, and I know it, to go outside to celebrate 4th of July. It's almost impossible to do the norm. And I'm saying that as a child of a veteran, only because my father was an entertainer, I was allowed those positive distractions in abundance. And I know that kept me during the difficult times of my life, not understanding what the heck was going on. And now I know that 8 weeks, passive aggressive, wise mind, thoughts create emotions, 8 weeks, it canceled 30 years, that these children, and so that's what I'm doing now. I'm focusing my attention. I see the kids walking back and forth. Great kids. We have 50 children here now. So I have the nonprofit status. My stepfather has the paperwork now. He's a retired attorney who lives at the Franciscan University. And he's setting that part up. And I know that the ideas and the desire and the need is here for children of veterans. First time, I think, in history, if we could just attaboy these kids outside of when we see them hugging their parents, hello or goodbye, it would be good for our country to grow, instead of them growing to get PTSD that's passed down from their parents, grow and thrive and be proud for them. This Connecticut has so many schools. We're surrounded by Central, Capital Community, Goodwin, Trinity, UConn. You know, it would be a great service for these kids to, as their parents come home from defending our country, the World Trade Center, that was big. It was big. And these kids, they're home alone. And it's not a sad thing. I mean, we lived through it, and they will too. But we're just going to give them some peace and some confidence to instill in them, as anyone does. It takes a village, but a veteran's village.
So you went through a lot in the service. Did you have any friends that you could talk to? Any friends that you made in the service?
Actually, I had I had a few friends, but when the MSTs were going on and the conflicts were going on, people distanced themselves because it's taboo. It wasn't. It wasn't recognized. It was, don't bring attention to yourself. It was troublemaker. It was, don't want to be in a foxhole with you. And it was just negative, but because we're soldiers, I never had buddies after that, and it altered my mind. Although, going to the VA all these years, and I never held it against veterans as a whole. I just always said I hate the effing VA. I did. And that included veterans, and I resented male veterans. But I really forgot my point just now, but I didn't have any friends. I had one friend, Willie Means, that he was from Connecticut. He was my sergeant. He helped me a lot when I came home. He even drove me. He worked at the VA. He drove me to Portland, Oregon. during me and my two daughters had I was in domestic violence, and it was terror. And he quit his job and drove me to Oregon because he knew what I had went through in the military and what I had been going through. But I haven't talked to him since. Yeah.
Did you keep a journal at all while you were in the service? Maybe just as like a way to vent, or?
I didn't, and it's something because up until I went in the military, growing up, I always had a journal, a diary, something. In second grade, we were told to write a story, and I always had a journal. But no, not until recently I started journaling again.
So now you do?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Yeah.
So when your service ended, where were you? Were you here, or were you in Fort Jackson?
When my service ended, I ended up getting married. I met a guy that came from Korea, and I married him 2 weeks later. This was after the violence and the rapes, and I married him. And I look back now, and it was like I was terrified, and I was just scared. And I know growing up, my parents were married, and my dad was protected. The family. We didn't stay married long, but
This occurred right before you got out, or right after?
I was married in the service.
Okay.
And then when I got out, I went to Laurinburg, South Carolina, where he was from, and became a daycare teacher. And the day the spaceship went up, this was in the 80s, and it blew up with the teacher in it, the townspeople came after me at the daycare because they said I did something to the kids, and I was down south. It was terrifying. And I came back home. This was in 1986, so I stayed down south for a couple years. And then I grew up in Suffield. We were living in Martin Luther King's dream before he had, I said to you earlier. But then when I went down south, I didn't know about racism, and I knew some things, but I didn't know all that. I just thought it was good fishing and beautiful. But then I came home, and I've been home. I've been in Connecticut since I've been back.
So when you were discharged, it was just the end of your service?
Yes.
It was the end of your enlistment?
Yes.
And how did you feel about getting out? Did you feel good about it?
I did. I went back in to make it my career because, when that happened, I was so gung-ho in basic training. I just loved it. And then when that happened, I still said I want to go back. I was going to career it. I really was, but it got too much. It wasn't what we were taught for women. It wasn't. It just wasn't. I didn't know what I thought, but what it was going to be, but it was just. I loved the idea. I loved the camaraderie. I really loved all that. Wow. I've had like 3 decades of. But it's okay though. I mean, I really did, but it's okay because I swear I wouldn't change a day for the way I feel these days. I swear my life is so peaceful. And I can't even explain it. I had to bring this letter to this guy, Daryl Payne, at the VA to ask him, what does it mean? I said, what does it mean? It's more likely than it's not. What does that mean? And he said, it means your heart, your determination paid off. I still didn't know. But then he told me what it meant. That they acknowledged it. I swear, I didn't know I was going to be this happy. I didn't know. I was that angry. I didn't. And all I could do to say right now was that I'm not embarrassed at all. I should be embarrassed. I should be ashamed of myself. I should be everything, but I'm not. Because it all makes sense. Now, I swear, now it all makes sense, and I'm okay with it. I swear to God, I am so okay. I'm okay with every blow. I'm okay, let me tell you. I don't even know if I want you to put this on, but...
You can stop if you want.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't change a day of all the darkness, the nights, the PTSD, what veterans go through after they get out the military if they don't get help for the military sexual trauma. I wouldn't change a day because I wouldn't have known. I would not have known what the acknowledgement that it did happen did to me. I wouldn't know the difference of fighting 30 years, going through what is expected, because I saw a documentary that the military knows what women will go through if they don't get proper treatment after being raped in the military. Homelessness, despair, for more rape, domestic violence, drug addiction, and the list goes on, and I covered all of it. But I'm glad I did. I'm thankful to God I did, because now I know what acknowledgement means. Now I know, with them recognizing that that did happen to me, and I'm not crazy. I don't need all those psychiatric medications, and I had to go through it to know this. That basic training changes our wise mind to be passive aggressive. And if we don't change it before we get out, back to the way it was before we came in, we're going to continue this path of veterans being in psych ward and on and on and on. But that letter has changed my life, and it is written proof. I asked people at the VA, I said, I need to go back to Kentucky to let them know what's happening to me. My life, my joy, my encouragement, my power is here, is back. And it's important for these women coming home, because 30% of all women who went to Iraq have been raped by their fellow soldier. And that's a part of life. My stepfather, John Scott, Colonel John Scott, was an airman in the Air Force in war. And rape in the military has been going on since the beginning. Women POWs. I'm not even going to go into those lists. But please, these women coming out, acknowledge. Just say yes. If it happened, it happened. But please don't ignore them. It's a generation of children, of them. Let them enjoy the freedoms they fought. I know I'm off topic, but I just want you to know that I'm glad that you're doing these type of things. I don't know what stories are out there, but I know all of this, everything that I endured, and everything is documented at VA. The only thing I do for the rest of my life is support these children of veterans, whether here or anywhere. It's important. There's a need. There's a great need. There are future governors, future presidents, future soldiers, future American citizens that need our help. Or they don't need help, they just need a hand. Give a hand. give a hand. No matter where you are, if you got a kid in your neighborhood, pat them on the back. Okay, next question, sorry. I mean, not sorry, but excuse me. Can't help that.
What would you, I don't want to say advice, but for other women or service members in general who have gone through similar situations, what would you say to them as maybe inspiration or something to help them cope with the feelings that they're having?
Well, what I suggest is to continue to seek help through the VA. And I'm saying that because I was a runner. I never stopped going to the VA, but when it would get too hard, when they would turn me down, when they would send me to mental health, I would leave and cuss everyone out. It didn't help. My advice to you is to consider a post-traumatic stress PTSD program. 8 weeks. 8 weeks is the start of a new life, of your old life, of the old way you used to feel. My advice to you is to consider that basic training changes our wise mind to be passive aggressive. Crouch down, shoot to kill, crouch down, fight, which makes sense. And it just simply doesn't blend into a civilized society. If you look back over your life, I remember my dad, he'd be at his top of his rage, and all of a sudden he'd look around and he would be like, what's going on? And then he would sob. It's just, this is a light switch. If you can wait, find a PTSD program, 8 weeks, and change until you could reverse the effects of basic training. 8 weeks helped me change 30 years of behavior, of screaming and yelling and cussing and crying and hiding in the dark and not going outside and afraid to go to parties, but cussed my mother out, cussed my kids out, fight the neighbor. But it's just a passive aggressive behavior. We're not crazy. And hang in there. And above all, remember, King David was a veteran, so we're in good company. We're in good company, and I mean that. Because I used to curse the VA from the depths of my soul. But my spirit, and that's part of my healing. That, I looked through the Bible and a bunch of veterans in there.
Okay. So basically, is there anything else that you want to talk about or cover that you haven't already covered?
Oh, dear. Excuse me. Well, this is what I'm going to say. I can only speak for myself, and I can only do what I can do as a veteran, as a female veteran. I started a nonprofit for children of veterans here at Victory Gardens for now to start the first leg, and it also in the our mission is for women veterans who are especially dealing with military sexual trauma. We're not exactly sure what all that's going to entail. But we can do this. As veterans, we don't need to hold our head down and hide in the dark anymore. I just want us to enjoy the freedoms we fought to defend, and I'm telling you, if anyone told me I would feel this good, this happy, this positive, this uncaring that I have all these ailments, and I have quite a few. If all the hate I harbored in my heart for what happened to me, if someone told me I would feel this good after this PTSD program and unraveling the truth that we do have power, that we are good in numbers, and we do have strength, that I would have called him a liar. But as God is my witness, everything is recorded about my behavior at the VA. And from now on, I know I'll never go back to homelessness. I know I can say I'll never go back to drugs. I know I will never go back to the anger and hate I felt towards the VA. 8 weeks, post-traumatic stress. In Israel, every citizen has to go in the military. But before they get out, they have to go through an 8-week program. They don't have veterans hospitals full of PTSD, psychiatric wards and all that. But I'm just saying, the young veterans that are coming home now, when it catches up to you, just hang in there. Because there's help at the VA. There really is. All right.
Well, thank you, Leslie, for sharing your story. Truly, truly brave of you and very inspiring to hear all of these things. Thank you for your service as well.
I hope it made sense. You're welcome. Thank you for asking.